Thank you for tuning in and welcome to Fired Up. I'm Bob Irwin, your host for the show, here from the gun store in Las Vegas, Nevada. This program, as regular viewers know, is all about guns, politics, and self-defense. Today, the panel segments will cover some zero-tolerance stupidity that's showing up in some school districts around the United States, an interesting legal case in Massachusetts over a seizure of some individuals' firearms, and we're on the verge of having a tell-all book coming out from ATF, or an ATF agent, on the Fast and Furious problem that they've had. We'll start with that right after these messages. It seems in the media every day we see another story about a child being booted out of school or suspended or kicked out of kindergarten because he simulated a gun with his finger or did some other child's play, which is now apparently considered an act of terrorism by a lot of school districts.
This one, actually, it's a keychain that is up for discussion. The child brought a keychain to school, and I can only imagine what's going to happen when a kid draws a stick figure gun or chews his Pop-Tart into the shape of what might look like a handgun, and they're going to lose their mind. This is absolutely ridiculous. I cannot handle this.
The media overreacting on these. I mean, these people are getting, it's getting absolutely ludicrous. I mean, I recall one with a kid, like he did point his finger, and they expelled. I just got a letter from one of our tourists here, souvenir, one of our T-shirts with our logo on it, with the evil MP5 on it. The kid wore it to school in England and got expelled.
Really?
And the father, it was, he wasn't blaming us or anything, and he thought it was cool and everything, but apparently they didn't like our logo to wear it to school in England. So the kid...
Are we now not allowed to do this story because we're part of the story?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, you're allowed to comment on the story. This is kind of nuts. We're trying to systematically take play out of our children's lives. It's normal. Kids get aggressive. Kids play. That's how they get some frustrations out. That's how they get their energy out. We all played dodgeball as a kid. And, wait, I think actually there are some school districts that have banned dodgeball because it's too aggressive. And I don't understand the keychain that we're talking about, Emily. It's about the size of a quarter.
Yeah, we give them away souvenirs here.
Well, at what point are we going to just say enough is enough? I mean, this thing's got completely out of hand. You can't, when you're a kid, this was your first gun. You ran around playing cops and robbers with it. Cowboys and rustlers, you can't point your finger at anymore. Right. What are you going to do?
It's getting to the point, not only with guns, but today I heard that they're going to destroy millions and millions of postage stamps now. They got different kids playing, and one kid doing a handstand, but he didn't have a helmet on.
No helmet, and so they can't do that because it might encourage some young mind full of mush
to
do a headstand.
One kid skateboarding didn't have knee pads on. So now they're going to destroy. Here the government doesn't have any money, and we're going to destroy millions of dollars in postage stamps. And I guess it's the president's, the first lady. It's her pet project. Besides, and everything's out the window. So it's rolling over from the guns into other fields now. It's just the political correctness is getting crazy.
It's become ridiculous. The children are not raised with anything that's competitive and raised absolutely no matter what happens. You don't hit back, you don't stand your ground, you get along with everybody all the time. And that's not the reality of the real world. You can't raise children to be absolutely non-competitive. I don't understand how that works. We have some serious cases of teenagers who are living in mom's basement, watching video games for 12 hours a day, and developing mental illnesses and drug problems and so forth. And they do need to intervene with those kind of guys, obviously, because we've had some problems there. But when we're looking at literally 4- and 5-year-olds that one was a little toy gun that shot little streams of bubbles.
That little girl, it's a Hello Kitty, and it doesn't even really look like a gun. It's a bubble gun, and she took it to school and said to a friend, "I'll shoot you with it, and you shoot me with it, and we can have fun. It's a bubble gun." And they kicked her out of school for it. She's like 4 or 5.
These kids would be in less trouble. I mean, they go like this. If he made a fist and actually knocked the kid out, like he'd probably be in less trouble. You know, they'd probably just like get detention or something, like a little after-school fight.
However, one of the things that can happen is if we get involved, if people get involved, there was recently in California a young lady who wore a shirt to school that
The NRA shirt?
on one side it had a picture of a deer, a buck. In the middle was the American flag, and on the right was the silhouette of a hunter out on a fall day. And they made her take it off and turn it around, and then they got so much heat for it that they actually reversed themselves and said, we're really sorry, that was inappropriate, that's an okay shirt. If parents whose kids are in these schools, if members of the community don't raise a stink about this, they'll continue down this path. And we will absolutely one of these days have a situation where no more football, no more contact sports below a certain age, no more outdoor PE. They'll have, indoor underwater basket weaving appreciation week or something like that, because we can't allow them to show any aggression. And like Bob said, competitiveness.
But how angry is a keychain? Like, I understand the aggression side of things, but if the issue at hand is specifically like a hand gesture or a keychain or a toy, something that doesn't have a hole in it that couldn't even be misconstrued as like an actual device by which something could be fired from it, how do they justify that is menacing? I don't understand.
Because you have administrators or teachers who are reading the manual that says anything that simulates a firearm, and they've actually tossed kids for little toy soldiers that are a half an inch tall with a little quarter-inch tall rifle.
What about Green Army men?
Somewhere I have one of those, get 1,000 little Green Army men and get the battle tank with it in the back of a comic book.
Oh
I think
my
I
God.
saved up and sent away, it was like $5.
This was like in the
This
last
was-
couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Michael.
because I'm still into that kind of thing. Those toys that's all they are. They're toys. And zero tolerance policies are really more disruptive than they're worth. They need to give some discretion back to the administrators to say, okay, you can call the parents and you can say, we have a zero tolerance policy. We're not going to talk to your child about it. We're not going to put anything in their record about it. But would you just make sure they don't bring this? It can be disruptive to the learning
But come
environment.
pick this object
Yeah,
up,
come pick it up.
and we're not going to bother the child until him he's suspended. How do you explain to a 6-year-old what suspended from school means? I mean, it is just draconian. We'll find something else even stupider to talk about probably further on in the show. We got a break for some commercials right now. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
More discussion on guns, politics, and self-defense when we come back on Fired Up.
So the chief voided his FID card, and they went out and took the guns.
And on what legal basis did you do this? Where did this guy get off? Just, I don't like you, give me your card, you can't own a gun anymore.
And we are back here on Fired Up. The thing we're going to talk about now is probably a lot more difficult, a lot more serious. We've just had a case where Massachusetts apparently has developed their own zero-gun policy. We have a local police chief, his name is Robert McDonald, decided that a young man who lived in the town he polices, Matthew Plouffe is his name, was too immature, in the chief's opinion, to possess firearms. So the chief, on his own discretion, revoked the young man's FID card, firearms identification card, that they're required to carry in Massachusetts when you own a gun. And after he took the card away, then the kid couldn't legally own a gun. So then they went to his house and took his guns and took them back to the police station, just like that.
Now, Matthew is 19 years old. He is old enough to have an FID card. In Massachusetts, you can get an FID card at 18, or at age 15, if your parent will sign, it allows you to own and be in possession of rifles and shotguns and transport them legally. In this case, the firearm was unloaded. It was a shotgun. It was unloaded. It was in the vehicle with a cable lock in it. It was as safe as you could possibly make it where it was at. Unfortunately, he'd been in a verbal altercation, whatever that meant, and so the police officer stopped him and kind of gave him a lecture, and Matthew produced his FID card, which was valid. The gun was inspected. The officer gave him the gun back and said, go forth and sin no more, kind of a thing. The police sergeant expressed a distaste for Matthew, and because he'd, I guess, befriended somebody younger than him, taken them shooting or helped them clean the guns or something, and that was inappropriate.
In the sergeant's
in the
opinion.
sergeant's opinion, and questioned
Okay.
his maturity for making that decision to actually, I don't know, pass along to a younger generation the shooting skills. So the chief voided his FID card, and they went out and took the guns.
All right.
You can't do
Wait,
that.
wait. Okay. All right. And on what legal basis did he do this? I mean, probable cause, crime being committed. I mean, where does this guy get off? Just, I don't like you. Give me your card. You can't own a gun anymore.
He's the chief.
I'm glad you asked that, because I actually looked it up to see if there was any legal basis, and as far as I can tell, immaturity, attitude, or issues of that nature are specifically enumerated as not grounds to issue an FID card, and it must be issued. If you qualify, if you're a legal resident, you're over the
Shall
age,
issue.
you have no...
It's a shall
Yeah.
issue.
Shall
Now
issue, shall take.
The rest of the cards in Massachusetts, which go from just possession and ownership all the way to carrying firearms, are all may issue, and they do have some strictures to them. But I can't find anywhere in the written law, now maybe there's case law that they do this all the time and nobody's ever challenged it, but
What do you think, Mike? You got a little lawsuit there?
there's an appeal right. Absolutely, he can
Yeah, I
appeal
would
this to the
think
district
so.
court, and he should. This is just horrible stuff, because you don't like somebody's attitude. You
I
think they're
would love
immature.
to have seen the affidavit, if there was an affidavit for a search warrant. The judge, if a judge issued on this kind of grounds, issued a search warrant for this house to go in and get these.
Apparently there wasn't, from what I read
Lenny,
in
you
the
know this
document.
wasn't a search warrant. This
No,
was
I
a
know.
knock and talk. Hey, Mrs. Plouffe, your son messed up. Give me his guns.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure some version of that is what happened. So,
Diane Feinstein, police chief in
Yeah.
Dayton County. Is this something where it was personal, you think? Like this was, he just didn't like when it was related to firearms, or do you think he had something against his kid other than that?
he's 19 years old.
It looks like it's contempt of cop. You
Right.
know, that
Yeah.
he
So if I just make a cop
had
mad,
been
like, they just take
driving
away?
and the officer pulled him over and got mouthy. A 19-year-old getting mouthy with the cops. Can you imagine? And then when he got back, the cop got back to the station and said, "Oh, he had a shotgun in his car and he was mouthy with me." He wasn't issued a ticket or anything. And
The chief went
so
off.
the sergeant, the chief, got in the back room and voided out his card and went, "Look, we have a guy that has no card, and
Retaliation.
he's got this shotgun."
And look,
They created their
Yeah.
own crime.
what we get so used to out here, because a lot of the law enforcement we're used to dealing with out here are pro-gun. In my experience on the East Coast, there are far more anti-civilian gun cops than out here. So for all we know, this part of Massachusetts, they may really not think
Yeah.
that this is appropriate. I know a lot of officers I talk to, oh no, the cops are really behind you with the guns. And not in Massachusetts, not in certain other states.
Cross the cop and take your gun.
I wonder if they rolled out their Department of Homeland Security supplied armored vehicle and the SWAT team hit his
Well,
house.
I suspect that if they'd shown up in the black with the MP5s and the MVAT, that somebody would have taken a picture and we'd know about it a little more than we do.
They didn't bring the feds into this
Yeah.
one. Lenny.
Yeah.
They thought they could handle
They
a
should have. It
19-year-old.
would have been handled much more quietly.
Well,
Yeah.
he did bring in a firearms lawyer, Second Amendment lawyer named Matthew Trask, who was apparently filing lawsuits against the chief, the sergeant, the other officer, the township, the alderman, and everybody for a clearly unconstitutional seizure of this guy's property. And
Absolutely.
it should absolutely happen. This is, we talk about on this show a lot that this politician or that politician is plotting to take somebody's guns away. And here we got a police chief of a small town on his own authority
Did just that.
doing it. Actually doing it. This is unbelievable to
And
me.
I'm sure the mayor patted him on the back and said, "Good job, Bob. That was way to go."
Yeah, I'm sure he did. They're going to be, hopefully they have deep pockets.
Yeah.
They're going to make a, well, there's a list here of what they seized from the young man's home: 2 pump-action shotguns, 10 rounds of rifle ammunition, 5 rounds of shotgun ammunition, a muzzling black powder rifle, an extra 28-inch shotgun barrel, and a box of black powder bullets.
Wow.
All stuff that it's quite legal for a 19-year-old to own.
Sounds like an Al Qaeda sleeper cell to me.
Now I tell you what,
Well,
there were
I mean-
some comments when this hit the local news. There were some comments that are just priceless. They range from he should sue them into the Stone Age to I don't know any 19-year-olds who are intelligent enough or mature enough to have a firearm, and I'm sure an entire graduating platoon of Marines who are all 18
Yeah, really.
would find that to be interesting.
well, with Marines, you never know. But the
Marines, they might have a case.
anyway, apparently a guy named Dean Cronin is one of the selectmen, and he was served with a lawsuit last Thursday, as we're taping this now. So we should have some interesting stuff on this in a later show. That we're obviously going to follow this, and hopefully the plaintiffs just don't let them get away with, oh, we're sorry, here's your guns back. This kid is in a small town like that is in for years. If this was, it appears that what happened, he was just being a smart aleck, and no doubt he was. Way carried beyond the line here. I can't actually imagine a police department, and you have 3 guys involved who all apparently thought this was a great idea. I can't imagine they don't have police academies in Massachusetts where you get like Constitution 101.
I wouldn't be surprised if their police academy doesn't say that whole Second Amendment thing is a problem for us. Feel free to violate it.
You know what they call a police officer that graduates academy with C's, right? Officer. So C's and D's.
Thought you were going to say chief.
Yeah, well, in this case.
I'm just can't wait to see the reaction to the lawsuit and what they come back with for their defense of this. It's got to be
It'll be interesting
really
follow-up.
colorful. Anyway, we'll be right back after these bits of information from our sponsors. Don't go away.
We'll have more Fired Up when we come back.
And we are back here on Fired Up. With me at the moment is Gene Altabella. Gene and I have been friends and associates for 20 to 25 years now. We worked together at the constable's office in Boulder City for years and years. And I wanted him to come in to talk a little bit about securing your house, where we get people that need to have good locks and good safes, and basically somebody you can trust to install that sort of thing. Gene does a lot of our lock work here at the gun store, and I wanted to give him a minute to talk about that. They should secure their home.
Yeah, Bob, what a lot of people don't do is they don't worry about the back of their house. They worry about securing the front of their house. And the majority of home invasions and break-ins that have been happening has been through the back door. They don't protect the back door like they should. And we have different ways of protecting it. If you come out to our shop, we can explain to it, or call a man out. We can come out and give you some tips on what you should do.
I've noticed that, and we've talked a lot about home invasions on the show, and that generally they'll knock on the front door, and if nobody answers, then they go around back and kick in the back door. So they use the front door just as a notice that nobody's there.
Exactly. That they'll knock on the front door, nobody answers the door, then they'll go around the back, and most of the houses are far enough apart that the neighbors don't see what's going on. And they'll turn around and they can have all do whatever they want with the back door.
That's a thought. So if you are home alone or home at some time you don't want to answer the door, if somebody beats on your front door and you don't know who it is, I would suggest you may respond. Like, what are you doing here? What do you want? Go away. So they know the house is occupied, because otherwise, if they are criminals, they're either going to kick in the front door because nobody answers, or more likely go around and kick in the back door.
That's usually what happens. If somebody's knocking on your back door, you don't have to answer the door. Just yell hello, let them know they're there, and if they're up to no good, they're going to leave. They're not going to hang around. If they got a plan on breaking in, or plan on making a home invasion while you're there, then of course that's when you need to be armed.
Yeah, we talk about that on the show a lot. What I'm trying to do is get a little bit further outer layer here, so that if you can get people to reinforce their doors so they can't be broken into, and then of course get a safe that you sell safes also.
Yes, we do. We sell safes, and our safes are much better grade than the ones you find in
The big box stores,
yeah, the big
Kmart,
box
we can
stores.
say them by
Yeah.
name, Kmart, Walmart.
Yeah, the chain stores, I call them. They usually sell a safe for around $400 or $500. They call it a safe, but it's not. It's just a security box. And if you're going to take, for example, an AR-15 that's all tricked out, that's worth about $1,500 to $2,000 or more, and you're going to put it in a $500 safe and expect to secure it, you're only fooling yourself.
You're going to lose your stuff. This is unfortunately very prevalent, and if you're about to go out and think about securing your house, getting a safe, or having somebody look at your house to see if they can fortify it a little bit, I would strongly suggest you call Gene. Like I say, I've known the guy for years. He does good work.
Hello, and welcome back to Fired Up with Bob. We're going to take some viewer questions. We've got some questions that came from our Facebook page. The first one is from Mike, who says, what are the laws for carrying in city parks? Open carry or concealed carry? My grandson plays at a lot of parks around town, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to carry.
In our area here in Las Vegas, the city parks now allow carrying of concealed firearms. That was a new change they made in the law this year. If you are living in a different city and viewing this show, you'd really need to call the police department or the commissioner of parks to find that out, because that will vary greatly throughout the western United States, throughout the United States altogether. Very different rules about city and county parks almost wherever you go. Here in this area in Las Vegas, the county parks don't allow carry and the city parks do. And so you can get yourself into real trouble not knowing where the park is located, and all it says is, you know, Joe Smith Park. It doesn't tell you what jurisdiction it's in. So call somebody so you know what's going on. And if they don't want you carrying your gun in their park, go somewhere else.
This viewer wants to say that they have a tight budget, first and foremost. That was made very clear. She says, what would be your recommendation for the best handgun for the money? I have a budget of $400.
Wow,
That could go some...
lots of
Yeah.
good ones for $400. The quality manufactured guns start at around $300 and work their way up to about $4.5, and there's a wide variety of choices for them. Expense is one of the things in a gun that generally means it's a better quality gun if it costs more money. Not in all cases. There's some very, very reliable guns that are in the $300 range. You need to go into a gun shop and take a look. That the person behind the counter recommends something for the size of your hand and your type of body and how you're going to carry the gun. But you'll find a lot of choices, and hopefully somebody can walk you through it and find the one you like.
Next question says, I have a World War I Colt 1911. It was my grandfather's service pistol. I was told never to use the newer bullets with higher grain counts in them. This didn't make sense to me, so I wanted to ask if there's an actual reason you can think of for this.
I cannot think of one either. I'd never heard that. The World War I Colt pistols are as well made as any of them. It's not rusted or worn out. There's no difference in quality. If anything, the old ones were machined better than the new ones that are built by
They don't
computers
make them like
now.
they used to.
So, yeah, exactly.
Another ammo question. This viewer wants to know, what is the difference between 45 ACP and 45 GCP?
A 45 ACP stands for automatic Colt pistol. It is what goes in a standard 1911 pistol or a Thompson submachine gun. It's a military caliber 45 the United States uses. The one with the G is a Glock cartridge that is slightly shorter than a 45 ACP. It holds a little bit less powder, but actually the loads can be the same because there's a lot of extra room in a 45 ACP. And the Glock cartridge is built for the smaller Glock so they could put a 45 caliber bullet in a smaller frame. It's kind of dying out as a pistol round. It's still around a little bit. It gave Gaston Glock a cartridge named after him. I don't think it's going to last forever on the market, so my guess would be to stay away from that cartridge because at some point the ammunition supply is going to dwindle to hard to find.
Terry wants to know, how do I clean my shotgun? How often do I need to clean my shotgun that I keep for home defense? Obviously, it's not something they shoot every day.
If it's cleaned, generally cleaned and kept lightly oiled, the answer is never. If it's in your house, it's not going to gather enough dust to make it non-functional in 500 years. If it doesn't rain in your house, the wind and sand don't blow through your house, it's sitting behind the door, under the bed, or under the mattress, it's going to be fine 20 years later. Cleaning modern guns is really not a problem with home defense guns where you're not shooting them and they're getting full of residue and burn powder and so forth. Just sitting there, it's basically good forever.
Bob, I need a suggestion of a good first gun from someone who has never shot a gun before. So this person has never shot a gun and they want you to tell them what to get.
A good first gun, it generally is a 22.
Yeah.
If you're going to learn how to shoot a pistol, starting with a 22 automatic, one of the little Rugers is nice. Smith & Wesson makes some very nice 22s. They're all around the $300 range. Very light recoil, easy to learn to shoot, easy to work, easy to pull the slide back and so forth. I'd recommend one of those for a beginning shooter. If it's a child, you want to start them with a rifle. And any number of companies make single shot 22 rifles and so forth. It's easy for kids to learn on. Start them with a one shooter so they don't forget there's a round in it. One round at a time, they have to reload it. Good for them to learn that. Don't start them with a scope. Start them learning to use iron sights and go from there.
Our next question comes from Jerry, who says, Bob, if I come home late at night and find the front door broken in, how do I handle it? Do I enter the house or call the cops first?
You always call the cops first and get out of the way. Go to a neighbor's house and wait for the police to arrive. What you don't want to do is go into the house and then have the police arrive behind you, because they don't know who lives there. And if you're searching your own house with a gun and here comes a uniformed officer, he knows who the other uniformed officers are there. They're wearing police suits. And he sees someone with a gun in the house, that could get very, very dangerous. Because the bad guy in the house, when confronted by the police, will always say, "But I live here, officer." They're used to hearing that. So if that happens to you, put the gun on the floor and put your hands in the air and stand still. But I really would suggest you wait for the police to arrive. He's not going to steal anything because you have to run out the door that you're watching. But let the police handle it. As I've said again and again, they have body armor and they have free lawyers. Let them do their job.
This person wants to know, what is a hammerless pistol and why is there so much debate over them?
A hammerless pistol, generally we're talking about a revolver automatic, that the hammer on the back of the gun is concealed. It is inside the device where it doesn't come up like you would see on the old cowboy guns where you can cock it with your fingers. It's all contained inside and it's operated by the trigger being pulled, actually operates the hammer for you. And I would strongly suggest on a concealed carry gun, that's one of the features you look for. If you have a gun that has the hammer sticking out, it's very difficult sometimes to get it out of clothing because that'll snag on your clothing and you won't be able to pull the gun out, it'll catch in your clothes. So they make revolvers with the hammer is covered or non-existent, and automatics also. Strongly recommend a hammerless or concealed hammer gun for carry.
This viewer is looking to purchase a gun and they said, I'm not sure what kind of gun I want to buy. How can I try out some guns without having to buy one?
Most any range in town, particularly the gun store, has firearms for rent. They'll rent them for $10 or $15 with a little bit of ammunition, and you can go try them out. I would suggest the gun store. It's the nicest one in town, but they do that at most other competing ranges also.
This viewer wants to know, is there a good long-distance shooting range in Las Vegas?
There is. Desert Sportsman's now has targets out to 600 meters, and I understand they're putting in a 1,000-meter range at the Clark County facility out there. I don't know if it's in there yet, but I know they've got one on the drawing board. So, and Boulder City, I believe now, the Boulder Rifle and Pistol Club has a 1,000-yard range attached to it also.
Another viewer would like to know if they are allowed to mail ammunition to someone.
No.
No, don't do it.
That's the straight answer. Ammunition is an explosive. The post office will take it in some rural areas because there simply is no ground service. But it's very difficult unless you're in the middle of Alaska to get the tags and permits to do that. It can be done. Normally they're shipped by common carrier that stays on the ground. UPS or Railway Express or FedEx ground is how ammunition is normally shipped inside the United States.
Well, that's going to end our question segment. If you have anything that you'd like to ask Bob or any of our other panelists, please write us at questions@firedupwithbob.com. Thanks for watching.
You know, once in a while here at the gun store, we get something in that I can just foresee is so dangerous that we don't want to sell it. And that may give you the wrong impression. This is a .380 automatic that just came in with a shipment of guns. And this little gem is a real gun. And I cannot imagine anybody foolish enough to have this thing in their home. It looks more like a toy gun than most toy guns I've ever seen. And it is a real operatable .380 automatic, holds 9 shots and actually works. If you've got anything like this in your house, we're not going to sell this gun obviously, but if you have anything that looks like this in your house that's a live gun, you need to get rid of that because this is walking danger right here with children.
Hi, I'm Tony D with the gun store here in Las Vegas, and today's historical firearm is a very unique little pistol. It's a model 1934 Beretta. And 1934 was developed in 1934 for the Italian Army, and it's in .380 caliber. It's a very, very pleasant, small, compact, nice shooting gun. This gun was made from 1934 all the way up until 1991. It was in production. Very, very compact, sweet shooting gun, single action, and it's famous for what they call the Beretta open slide design. The open slide design means that the slide is opened up here and the empty cartridge case can come out any which way. A lot of the other semi-automatics have an ejection port in which the empty case must come out of that. They say that this is more or less prone to malfunction because of that feature, and the other side of the coin said it's more susceptible to dirt and debris because of the open design. This gun came with the plastic grips on it, and this one here is marked with the Italian, with the fascist, Christian date and the fascist date. And what that means is that it was built in 1942, however, it has Roman numerals of 21. And the way that worked was when Mussolini took power in 1922, that was the first year of the fascist regime. So it went from there on. So 1923 would be 2, and so on and so forth. This gun, they came out, this is a 1934 model, and this is in .380, or what the Italians called 9mm corto, which is short. In 1935, they came out with another model of this gun, and it was in .32 caliber, and they were basically used for the Air Force. The Air Force was more of an elite, and I think with the Italians it was like the more rank you had, the smaller the caliber got. The generals, some of the generals were carrying little .25 autos. So it's kind of a unique little gun. Okay, we're going to insert the magazine, charge it, and have some fun. I only loaded 5 rounds in it. You can see the slide stays back on the last round, and we're done.
I'm Mike Rogers. We're going to do more out of the week now. Hopefully things that you wouldn't even think about doing.
Okay.
Anybody can get scope bite, but doing it with a pistol takes a true moron. Don't do that.
I'm asked quite often, can I shoot reloads? They're cheaper and easier, and right now I can't get a hold of ammunition. I always advise my clients not to carry reloads for self-defense ammunition. As we discussed last week on the legal brief, the choice of firearm you carry could, in fact, play in whether or not a jury believes you were guilty of a crime, or, in a civil case, whether you're found negligent in a shooting. A same concept could go towards your ammunition. I'm asked quite often, can I shoot reloads? They're cheaper and easier, and right now I can't get a hold of ammunition. I always advise my clients not to carry reloads for self-defense ammunition. As with anything else, if you happen to have reloads in your firearm and you're forced to defend yourself, that can be explained. But choosing to do so could lead a prosecutor or a plaintiff's attorney to suggest to a jury that regular ammunition wasn't deadly enough for you, you had to make your own. Again, it'll be expensive to hire an expert to explain that in fact that's not true, that the ammunition you made was just as safe and just as effective as factory ammunition. Another question that comes up quite often, even in these days, is hollow point ammunition going to get me in trouble? Probably not, especially if your local law enforcement carries it. If you have any questions about what ammunition you should carry in your firearm, I always advise my clients, find out what the largest local law enforcement agency carries, and so long as you can purchase the same ammunition, carry that ammunition if it works in your firearm. It's really hard for a prosecutor or a plaintiff's attorney to suggest you were unsafe when 500 or 600 officers carry the same ammunition.
When are we ready to shoot? When we actually have sights on the target. All right, big rule of firearm safety, keep your finger off the trigger at all times until you're ready to shoot. When are we ready to shoot? When we actually have sights on the target. I can bring this up. I'm putting my sights on the target. As soon as I have a sight picture, I'm going to take the safety off. Then I can put my finger on the trigger. Until then, my finger's well clear. That way, if I stumble, I start to fall, anything goes wrong, I've got the protection of both the safety and my finger being off the trigger. Protect everybody around you. You only use your sights when it's time to shoot.